Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be sharing with you how I made this 3-part corset with pin and neckline. So if you haven't seen the drafting tutorial, I'm going to leave the link at the description box, or you can go down to my channel. So if it's your first time viewing my channel, please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit on the subscribe button and also leave your comment at the comment section. So let's start. So first, here are my pattern and I've gone ahead to cut it out. I added 1/2 inch round on the cup part, and if you followed my tutorial, you notice that I merged the upper part of the cup, and also for the piece for the front I taped it together with a tape, and I went ahead to cut it round and I added 1/2 inch round at the cup area. So I'm going to remove my pattern, and this is what I have. So I cut it round on fold. I went ahead to iron stay to my material because I'm using a bridal satin doll face for that. After ironing the hairstay, I went ahead to top stitch it round so that it's not going to move. Then for my lining, I went ahead to cut out gum stay for it, but I didn't iron it now. I'll be ironing that later. So to iron it, you're going to place your lining on the shiny part of the gums there, and you're going to go ahead to iron it. So right now, to work on my cup area, what I'll do is I'll go ahead to unpin the pattern on it. After unpinning the upper part of the cup, this is what I have. Next, I'm going to open up the lining pieces that I have cut out for the upper part of the cup, and this is what I have. Next, what I'm going to do is to open up the gum stay, and I'm going to place it underneath the lining of the cup. Make sure the shiny part of the gum stay is the part facing the lining, so that by the time you iron, is going to stick on the lining. So I'm going to place my wadding underneath it. I'm using a wadding. So if you're also using an already made cup, you're going to join your cup pieces this way before attaching your already made cup to it. So for me not to get confused, for the cup, I'm going to notch the part that is facing the center of my corset. So after notching it, I'll go ahead to notch the lining piece also. So next, I will be working on the other part of the cup. So I'll go ahead to unpin this cup, and I've gone ahead to iron my wadding already on the main piece of the cup. So I'm just going to open it up. After opening it up, I'm going to do the same thing for the lining and the gum stay part. I'm going to place it, and I'm going to place my lining on it, and I will go ahead to iron. So next, I will be placing the other cup also, and I have gone ahead to iron the wadding already to it. So what I'm just going to do is to open it up just the same way I opened the other part of the cup. So I'll go ahead to iron this on it. So next is to join the cup. I'll go ahead and iron and top stitch around it to avoid shifting, and then I'll go ahead to top stitch and join this with 1/2, and I'm also going to repeat the same process with this. So now if you're using an already made cup, it's still the same process, but the only difference is that you don't have wadding on it. So after joining your cup, that is when you'll be attaching your already made cup to it. Next thing, I'm going to take the upper part of the cup, and if you notice, I have a center, the pointy part of this cup. I'm going to place it on it, and I'm going to stitch it up with 1/2 inch at that point. So this is what you'll be having. If you're using an already made cup, you still follow the same process. So after stitching this, that is when you're going to attach your cup to it, if you're making use of an already made cup. So after stitching, this is what I have. This is what this part is looking like, and I went ahead to notch it so that it's going to relax. So next up, we'll be working on the body of the corset. So what you're going to do is to iron the gum stay on the lining piece. So on the main fabric, you can go ahead to create your boning at the wrong side of the fabric if you're making use of a regaining boning or a sewable boning. So you can also create your boning channels at the back of your fabric or on the wrong side, but for mine, I want mine to be feasible, and I'll be using an Ankara fabric that I'm working with. So I'm making use of a plastic boning. That's what I'll be using for this tutorial. So what I'm going to do is to cut out a strip of fabric which is 1.5 inches the width, and then you measure the length of what you have. I'll go ahead, stitch with 1/2 inch, flip it in this way, and then I'm going to fold it in and I will top stitch. So you can go ahead to top stitch on both sides. So after top stitching, this is how your channel is going to be looking. So I'll go ahead to create as many boning channels that I want on this pattern. You can go ahead to create different designs. So here is the body of my corset, and I have gone ahead to create as much boning channel. Right now is to attach the cup to it, and to find the center I'm going to place, and I'm going to notch it this way, and I'm going to place for the other side, fold it. Look at the way I'm folding it. You're just going to do the same, and you're going to notch to get the center for the body of the corset where you'll be attaching your corset from. So I'll go ahead to pick my cup. So at this point, you're just going to pin it to the center, and you're just going to sew and attach your cup. So right, when you're sewing your cup, if you're having difficulties in attaching it, you can as well go ahead to pin it. So while pinning your cup, if you notice that your cup is larger than the space you have to attach your cup, do not panic. All you're going to do right now is to take your scissors, and you're going to notch the body of your corset a bit. But before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead to pin up this other side. So this is what I have after pinning this side, and we are moving over to this side. So just like I said, on this part I have like few inches that are not the size of the space I have. So what I'll do is to take my scissors, and I'm going to notch it little. Do not cut in deep. So don't notch more than 1/2 inch on the body of the cup. So after doing that, I'm going to place my cup, and you notice that it is aligning with the cup that I have. So what I'm going to do is to go ahead to pin it at that point also. So after I'm done pinning my cup, this is what I have. So I'm also going to repeat the same process for the other side of this cup. So if you're using an already made cup, this is the same process. The only difference is that after attaching this, you'll be attaching your cup to it later. So I'm done joining, and this is it. Whatever I do to this, I also did that to the lining part, and right now we'll be opening up the yoke of this dress. So, or the Queen Anne neckline, I added 1/2 inch in front and 1/2 inch below. So to open up my pattern, this is what I have. I just cut out the fabric and lining. So you can as well go ahead to cut out a gum stay for this if you want to. So I'm going to place my lining on it this way, and I'm going to turn it up with 1/2 inch on this part of the neckline, and I'm going to flip it this way. I'm also going to iron it out. After doing that, I'm going to go over to place it to my cup part. So I notched the parts where I'm going to attach the cup to, where I cut out the yoke from. So you're going to do that while you're sewing yours. So I've gone ahead to turn up the yoke, and just like I said, I notched the part of this cup that is going to fit to the yoke part. So I'm just going to place it at that point, and I'm going to go ahead to pin. So after pinning it, what I'm going to do is to go straight to the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch up that part with 1/2 inch. After doing that, I'm going to go ahead to repeat the same process for this also. So after you're pinning, or after you're done sewing, this is how it's supposed to look like. So I'm going to flip in the hand inwards this way, and I'm going to go ahead to take this lining part, and I'm going to pin it on it this way right round my front pattern, and I'm going to stitch up the side and the neckline, leaving the under part open, because I'll be turning it open from that part also. So after stitching round, this is what I have, and I'm going to go ahead to notch it round to make it more relaxed. And after doing this, I'll turn it open. So I've gone ahead to turn it, and this is what my corset is looking like right now. It is very neat, and the next step is to pass my boning to it. But before I add my boning, I'm going to go ahead to stitch up the back part of this corset. So at the yoke part, I went ahead to add 1/2 inch for stitching allowance by the sides. So I'm going to go ahead to stitch it with 1/2 inch, and I'll leave the lower part open and the sides open, because I'll be attaching sleeve to that, and I'll go ahead to iron it out after stitching. So whatever I do on one side of the neck, I'll be repeating it for the other one. So after stitching, I'm going to turn it to the right side. So this is the yoke part, and I'm going to go ahead to cut out the excess I have on the lining part. So next, I'll be bringing the lower part of this dress for the back, and I'm going to unpin it. So I added 1/2 inch round the zipper and below the pattern. So I'm just going to unpin this, and this is what I have, right? So I cut out lining and gum stay for this, for the back part. So I'm going to separate it, and I'm going to go ahead to iron the gum stay on the lining part of this. So I'm going to explain to you what I'm going to do, so, and I'll go ahead to do that. So I'll bring out the main fabric, and I'm going to go ahead, notch that part where your yoke is also going to start on your pattern paper, and I'm going to place it on the fabric this way, and I'm going to pin it down. You're going to go ahead to stitch it. So after stitching it down, I'll just flip it in this way. So after flipping it in, I'm going to bring the lining and the gum stay part of this dress. So after ironing the gum stay on the lining, you're going to place it this way on top of this fabric, and you're going to stitch up the sides, the neckline, and at the lower part. So after stitching it up, I'm going to go ahead to notch it round so that it will be relaxed. Then I'll go ahead to turn it to the right side. So I forgot to add a loop, so I'll just go ahead and cut out a fabric and stitch a loop on it. I'll just stop stitch a loop on it. So this is my 2 back, and this is what I have. So remember, I said whatever you do on the other side, you're going to repeat it on the other side also. So the next step we'll take is to pass our boning inside our boning channels. So when you're passing it, you're going to leave about 1/2 or 1 inch, because you're going to be stitching up the lower part. So I'm just going to go ahead to cut out at this point. I'm going to wrap the mouth with a solo tape. So if you don't want to wrap with a solo tape, you can go ahead to burn it with your lighter if you have. So the reason why you're doing this is to avoid it poking you while you're wearing the dress. Next, I've gone ahead to pass the boning, and I'm going to continue doing that for all my boning channel. So on the back side of my corset, I'm going to run a stitch at the back to create a boning channel, and I'll also pass my boning through it. So after passing my boning and also on this part, this is what I have. And next up, what I'm going to do is to attach the lower part. So I've gone ahead to stitch up the skirt part of this pattern. I did that offline. So I have videos where I turned my skirts, so you can also check that out. So to attach this on my skirt pattern, I'm going to go ahead to fold it into two. I'll go ahead to notch the center part of the skirt. After notching it, I'm going to open it up, and I'll also go ahead to fold the upper part of my corset into two, and I'm going to notch it just like I did, and I'm going to trim out some parts of it to get the shape I want at the upper part. I'll also go ahead to notch the center part of my upper part after trimming. So after doing that, I'm going to place the notch part on the notch part this way, and I'm going to take it inwards. So after placing it, what I'll do is I'll notch it where the upper part stops on the skirt pattern this way. And after doing that, I'm going to go ahead to draw out the shape I have on the waist. So I'm going to make sure the waistline of the skirt is touching the waistline of the upper part, and I'm going to draw out the shape that I have after pushing the upper part inwards a bit, because I added about 1 inch at the lower part just to create a slight basque on the waistline of the skirt. So after cutting out, it's time to join the upper part and the lower part. So to join, I'm going to place it this way. So from that part I cut out, I am going to start joining from the part I notched. I'm going to start joining on my upper part and my lower part together, and I'll go ahead to join it with 1/2 inch. So after doing that, I'll be joining the back part of this. So to join the back part, I'm going to bring these two pieces together, and I'm going to place it this way. And what I'm going to do is to get the lower part of the skirt part. I'm going to place it this way, and I'm going to fold it over this way, and I'm going to stitch with 1/2 inch. After stitching it, I'm going to stitch down the lower part, and I'll go ahead to attach the zipper for the back part of the dress. After stitching it, after joining it, this is what I have on my pattern. So next, I'm going to flip it to the right side, facing right side, and I'm going to be joining the shoulder of the dress. To join the shoulder, I'm going to take the front part and I'm going to place it in between the back pattern, and I'm going to stitch with 1/2. So over here, I'm also going to take the front pattern, place it, and I'm going to use the back pattern to wrap it round. And after wrapping it round, I'll go ahead to stitch it with 1/2. So next, I'm done joining the shoulder and I have stitched up the back, attached the zip. Next up, we'll be cutting the sleeve of this dress, and I'm going to cut it together. So I have two pieces. So to do that, I'm going to mark 1/2 inch on top for joining allowance, and from there I'm going to measure my shoulder to elbow line. After measuring my elbow line, I'm going to use the full length of this fabric for my sleeve. So now is to draw the armhole curve. So what I'm going to do is to measure what I have right here at the armhole of my dress. So another way you can do this is just to measure what you have on your round armhole. So on the front part, I have about 11.5, and I'm going to make sure I trace that out on this point. So this is a freehand sketch way of drawing your armhole without dividing or adding anything. So once I get that, I'm just going to draw out the curve this way. So after drawing that, the next thing I'm going to over is to get what I have round my elbow point, and I'm going to just add 1.5 or 1 inch each, because you're going to turn it with lining. So I'm going to connect from that point down to my elbow point, and I'm going to come down a bit by 4 inches on that point, and I'll place my elbow measurement or go in by 1 at that point. Then after doing that, I'm just going to connect it straight down to, or slant it down to the end of my fabric. So I'll just go ahead to cut out, and you're going to turn it up with your lining. After cutting it out, this is what I have, and I'm going to flip it. This is my 2 sleeve. You're going to turn it up with your lining. Next is time to shape the dress. So I'm going to make my markings to shape the dress before I'll attach the sleeve. So to do that, I'm going to take my tape, and I'm going to get my under bust point of my tape, and I'm going to place it at my under bust. So from that point, I'll place my tape and get my nipple point, my shoulder to bust point. So after marking that, I'll just make a mark at my under bust, and from my under bust, I'm going to get my waistline. From my waistline, I'm going to measure 7 inches to get my hip point. So for a very much taller person, you can measure 8 inches. So after doing that is to insert my measurements on the body of the dress, and to do that, I'm going to place my tape this way, and I'm going to go ahead to measure. So whatever I have there, my bust circumference is 33 divided by 2. I have 16.5. So after measuring, what I have is 18.5. 18.5 minus 16.5, which is my body circumference, divided by 2. I have 2 inches, and I'm going to share that 2 inches on both sides, giving me 1 inch. And remember, I added 1.5 inch for sewing allowance, so I used half, so I have 1 on both sides. So I'll go ahead and mark. So at the under bust, I measured, I got 16 inches, and my under bust circumference is 28 divided by 2. I have 14. So that's 16 minus 14. I have 2 inches left, and I'm going to share it on both sides, and I will go ahead to mark. So I'm going to repeat the same process for my waistline. I'm going to divide my waist circumference divided by 2 and measure whatever I get. I'll be minusing it from it, and I'll go ahead to mark. Going down to my hip point, I'm going to mark the hip side, then divide my hip circumference. Whatever I have there, I'll be minusing my hip circumference from it, and I'll mark the remaining allowance. So after marking that, I'm just going to take what I have, and I will join my lines. So if you want your pattern to be very tight at the lower part, you can go ahead to mark 1.5 inches or 2 inches, but I'm just going to take what I have straight down to my hip point, and I will repeat the same thing for both sides. So after shaping it, I'm going to attach my sleeve, and I'll bring it to show you my final results. So after sewing, this is what I have. So if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please hit on the subscribe button. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Leave your comments at the comment section. Thank you.